launching just now with YouTube recording. Scott was there in the temple just now. That's okay. Thank you so much for joining. Yeah, I started live. Anyone have any brief from the chapter 9, Vrindavan, right? Anyone wants to say something, few words? The author
discussed about Prabhupada's ecstasy increasing as he was traveling from
very
Delhi
nice.
to Vrindavan.
Yeah, that's the very key point. It's like a coming home, his loving home, coming home after long time. So his ecstasy is increasing every time he's meditating how Lord Chaitanya and all the acharyas have felt the joy. And then we discussed about, read about the glories of Vrindavan, right? Am I right? Am I in right page? Oh, sorry. There's another one? Yeah.
Did you reach chapter?
No, I think I messed up here yesterday.
What did you do?
We will start from here, okay? Although Lord Krishna's abode, Goloka Vrindavan, is far beyond the material world, when Krishna comes to earth, he displays his eternal abode in the Vrindavan of India. That 84 square mile tract in North India is identical with the eternal world in the spiritual sky. Though we read, I'm just going through again the previous. To live and die in Vrindavan guarantees that devotees transfer to the eternal spiritual world. The residents of Vrindavan, even the animals, are exalted. At the end of life, they will transfer to Goloka Vrindavan. Lord Brahma therefore prayed that he might take birth as a clump of grass on the outskirts of Vrindavan, so that these pure devotees would purify him with the dust from their feet. And Vaishnava Shastras declare that even by only a brief visit to Vrindavan, one can realize the Supreme Lord in his heart. Chaitanya Charitamrita states, like the transcendental body of Lord Krishna, Gokula is all-pervading, infinite, and supreme. It expands both above and below, without any restriction. That abode is manifested within the material world by the will of Lord Krishna. It is identical to that original Gokula. They are not two different bodies. The land there is touchstone, Chintamani, and the forest abound with desire trees. All the material eyes see it with an ordinary place, as an ordinary place. The ideal place to execute Krishna consciousness is Brajabhumi or Vrindavan, where people are naturally inclined to love Krishna, and Krishna is naturally inclined to love them. The train arrived at Mathura. Abhay stepped down with his luggage and looked around, noting the recently constructed Mathura Junction building. Proceeding through the gate and out of station, he found a Tanga driver, agreed on the fare, and started for Kesighat. So here is I don't know, his memory is sharing, or Sasur Maharaj is narrating, I don't know about this part, but at least he was, as he was extra, he was increasing. His, this has been narrated, the nature of this Vrindavan. Even although the Krishna say about Goloka Vrindavan is very far, but still the Gokul Vrindavan is manifestation of the spiritual abode. It is 84 square miles tract of land. Anyone who dies in Vrindavan is guaranteed, even including the animals. That's why great personalities aspire to live in Vrindavan, actually, or in whatever form it is, so that the dust of the pure devotees, they can be purified by the dust of the pure devotees of the Vrindavan. So now here Chaitanya Charitamrita has mentioned that like transcendental body of Lord Krishna, Gokula is also all pervading, up and down everywhere. There's no limit, it's unlimited. They're not two different bodies actually. Spiritual abode and the manifestation here, both are same, and the touchstone, Chintamani Dham. And now finally here it's mentioned that Jiva Goswami or Rupa Goswami mentions the 5 potent form of devotional service. One of them is chanting of holy name, reciting Srimad Bhagavatam, at the same time living in Mathura, right? So he says that the ideal place to execute Krishna conscious is Brajabhumi or Vrindavan, where people are naturally inclined to love Krishna. So this is an interesting thing, but Prabhupada himself is going to leave Vrindavan for higher purpose. But so train arrived, and that's the protocol. You from Mathura, you go to Vrindavan, you take a auto. Nowadays, autos are available. Tanga used to be there before. Yeah.
For half a mile, the wobbling horse-drawn cart followed the road between the tracks and railway yard. At the main road, they turned left, passing under a railroad bridge, and entered an open market. Piles of fruits, vegetables, and grains were displayed on the ground, the vendors sitting beside them, bartering and measuring while customers milled about. The women of Mathura, dressed in brightly colored saris, the yellows, greens, pinks, and purples, moved busily in the market. The vehicular traffic consisted mostly of bullock carts, the drivers often squatting on the wooden yokes between the shoulders of their animals, whipping alternately one ox and then the other with the length of rope joined to a wooden handle. Although this was the most populated area on the trip to Vrindavan, compared to Delhi, it seemed simple and rural. The sun was high, but the Tanga's top provided a partial shelter, and the summer's heat had passed. Beyond the bazaar, the road curved to the right, and Abhay saw the nearby white domes of the massive sandstone mosque marking Krishna Janmashtana, the birthplace of Lord Krishna. Centuries ago, invading Muslims had destroyed the large Krishna temple and created the mosque in its stead. And now, directly in front of the mosque, stood a new, smaller Krishna temple. They approached the three-way junction, New Delhi, Central Mathura, Vrindavan. The driver struck the horse with his whip, and the Tanga proceeded along the Vrindavan road, edging through a herd of white cows. The herdsman walking amongst them, carrying his stick. The road was busy with tangas and slow, creaking ox carts, loaded with the market commodities and pulled by squat, black water buffalo. A throng of small, spindle-legged donkeys carried oversized loads of firewood and sandbags. So Abhay is explaining his trip while he's going to Vrindavan, and he's explaining how the men here are selling in their shops while the women are moving in the market. And even though it feels like many people are there, compared to Delhi, it seems very simple and as a rural place. And as he continues, he sees the a white dome mosque marking the birthplace of Lord Krishna, and he explains how long time ago Muslims had came and destroyed the temple and created a mosque, but now there's a newer, smaller temple. And
And they approach the three.
yeah, just
Yeah, it's so painful, isn't it? All the temples they tried to occupy, all the temples. Even in Krishna Janmashtami also, if you've been there, Krishna Janmasthan also, if you've all been there, it's the same issue. Everywhere they did it. Okay. Yes, I can prove. You can.
Although much had changed in Abhay's life since he had come here to see his spiritual master, during the parikrama years ago, Vrindavan had remained the same. He felt he had done the best thing in coming here, leaving the heat, the traffic and fumes, the human passions of Delhi. It was a natural relief. Yet, even as he felt transcendental emotions for Vrindavan, impressions of his months of preaching in Delhi lingered in his mind. The city streets and himself going from place to place with his back to Godheads. Life in Delhi had been constant, vigorous preaching. Now he was more than 60 years old, but he was not coming to Vrindavan to retire. He had retired from household responsibilities, but not from his responsibilities of making back to Godhead as popular and sophisticated as Illustrated Weekly. He would live in Vrindavan and commute to Delhi, but he would never stop preaching. The sight of taller trees signaled the precincts of Vrindavan as the thin horse trotted along past the police station and water trough for animals. On either side appeared the garden courtyards of private estates and ashramas. Fragile white malati flowers, golden marigolds, frangipani trees, red hibiscus, trees of sorrow, and many other flowers and trees, some known only in Vrindavan, bloomed forth in the brilliant sunlight. The Radha Govinda temple looked fortress-like on his left, and opposite in the distance, the high-rising tower of the Ranganath temple. They entered narrow streets, tighter and busier places with markets and city dwellings, and then it became quieter again. At the end of a narrow street by the Yamuna River, near the KC bathing ghat, stood the small and beautiful ornate entrance of the Vamshi Gopalji temple, a narrow three-storied building with three domes and many decorated arches. So here here it talks about Abhay came to Vrindavan when his spiritual master was doing the parikrama years ago. So nothing changed from that time, and he even though he had come here, he was still thinking about Delhi. He was thinking about his preaching and about how he was delivering back to Godheads from place to place. Usually people they go to Vrindavan to retire, but here Prabhupada, even though he was 60 years old, he was not going to retire and go to Vrindavan. He still had his responsibilities of preaching and making back to Godhead popular as the Illustrated Weekly of those times. So his plan was he would live in Vrindavan and commute to Delhi to distribute back to Godhead. And here in the second, they talk about the surroundings as the Tanga went into Vrindavan. Here they talk about a lot of different trees, flower, marigolds, hibiscus, malati flowers, and also the Radha Govind temple and the Ranganath temple. And then at the end, they came to the KC Ghat, which was his destination, which was near the Vamshi Gopalji temple.
After stepping over the curbside drain and walking up 3 marble steps, Abhay entered the front door, the driver following him carrying the luggage. Once inside, Abhay removed his shoes and entered the courtyard, which was open. Which was open to the sky through a metal grate on which a few birds sat 2 floors above. A column of sunlight lit one side of the courtyard, where a potted tulsi sat atop a pillar. The temple seemed cool and quiet. Adjacent to the courtyard was the deity room, its doors locked shut. Overhead was a mezzanine with rooms whose entrances were visible from the courtyard. A few saris and strips of cloth hung on improvised clothes lines. Mahant Gopal, the temple pujari, whom Abhay had known since 1954, greeted him cheerfully. He was about the same age as Abhay and had long grey hair and an unruly beard. Although Abhay's attire was modest, he appeared well dressed compared with Gopal, who wore only a coarse dhoti. Gopal led Abhay upstairs, coming out onto the roof. Abhay smiled to see again the wonderful vista. Barely 100 yards away, he could see the Yamuna, not only the immediate patch of water flowing before him, but to his left and right, a broad curving sheet of river shimmering in the afternoon sun. There were sand deltas, herds of cows and buffalo grazing the flat grassy banks of the Yamuna, and plains and trees as far as the eye could see. And in the opposite direction was the town of Vrindavana, marked by dozens of temples, spires, and domes. Um, Prabhu, you summarize.
Okay, sure, thank you. So now, beautiful Vrindavan Prabhupada arrives, reached the temple of Gopalji's temple, Vamsi Gopalji's temple actually. So describes how, these are the impressions in his mind remains. These the experiences stays the Vrindavan, the simplicity and all these things remains. Is the Mahanta Gopal, who's same as a Prabhupada, he came. They know them, It says Abhay had known since 1954. It means not many years. It's a couple of years, right? It's 1956, end of 1956 now, November, I believe, right? So he greeted him. But here, interestingly, it says that uh, he appeared, all the others attire was modest. He appeared well dressed compared with Gopal, who wore only a coarse dhoti. So for someone's mind in Vrindavan, residents of Vrindavan, they don't mind. In that they're happy with the same thing. That's a very interesting thing to note. Gopal led him upstairs, coming out on the roof, was smiled to see again the wonderful vista. Barely hundreds yards away, he could see the Yamuna those days. Now it's very hard. I don't think you can see. Not only the immediate patch of water flowing before him, but to his left and right and broad carving sheet of river shimmering in the afternoon sun. So these are the beautiful narrations of his room, he could see. And in the opposite direction was the town of Vrindavan, marked by dozens of temples, spires, and domes. Okay, this is the narrations. Okay, who else? Pranath, you can start.
Yes. Abhay's room, the only one on the roof, was small with narrow double doors and barred windows. Sitting on the apartment's roof, monkeys with their tiny offspring sat watching, unalarmed, just outside the door. A 2-foot high cement pyramid signified that the temple deity was directly beneath. Abhay entered the room. Through the barred windows, he could see the palace at Keshi Ghat, the venerable tower of the Gopinath temple, and beyond the uninterrupted flat river, the green banks and the sky. After acquainting Abhay with the details of the room, the small kerosene burner, after acquainting Abhay with the details of the room, the small kerosene burner, the rope and bucket for drawing bath water from the well of the roof, Gopal meticulously produced a government stamped rental agreement. Abhay wrote a short paragraph declaring himself a disciple of the late Srimad Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada and attesting to his renting the room at 5 rupees per month. Both parties signed. After his bath, Abhay took prasadam and rested. When he heard the bells ringing in the temple below, he went down to see the deities. Gopal, who had been the temple's pujari for many years and had seen its reconstruction in 1923, had told Abhay that the temple deity Vamshi Gopalji had been installed 350 years before by Mahant Prahalad Das of the Nimbarka Vaishnava Sampradaya. Gopal himself had installed the deity of Radharani, Vamshi Gopalji, standing in a graceful threefold bending form and holding his flute was very appealing. He was 3 feet tall and of black marble. Radharani, slightly shorter, was of brass. They were simply dressed in rough white cotton and illuminated by the dim glow of a kerosene lamp. Abhay could see that they were being cared for, but because of poverty, there was no opulence. He returned to the roof as the sun was setting over the town of Vrindavan. Having the entire roof's walkway to himself, Abhay walked and chanted japa, enjoying the cooling early evening breeze from the Yamuna. Occasionally, a solitary boat would pass on the calm waters of the Yamuna, and the devotee, somewhere unseen, could be heard chanting evening prayers at Keshi Ghat. He felt pleased with this location in the heart of the pastimes of Lord Krishna. He was not a newcomer spending his first day in a strange town. Everything here was already familiar and dear. As Vrindavan was Krishna's abode, Abhay was Krishna's servant, the servant of the six Goswamis, the servant of his spiritual master. He felt at home. So it's describing about Abhay moving into this room above the temple, um, and the Pujari Gopal ji, you know, helped them settle down into the room, signed a contract, an agreement, $5, 5 rupees per month. Sorry, and the introduction Prabhupada gave himself in that paragraph was saying himself as the disciple of Srimad Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. And after Prabhupada settled down, he took a shower and then took some rest and went down into the temple room to see the deities. And it's described here that Gopalji, when was this Prabhu? This was this whole thing was in 19.
Oh, sorry. Which one?
This
No,
whole
no.
no, the construction in 1923, but Prabhupada was in Vrindavan. This pastime was in which year? 1940s?
1956.
56?
56.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. I was just trying to connect the.
Yeah.
So, just was the temple priest was there since the reconstruction in 1923. So I was just trying to connect, and giving the history of the Vamshi Gopalji deities who had been installed 350 years ago by Mahant Prahalad Das of the Nimbarka. It's interesting, it says Nimbarka Vaishnava Sampradaya. Although I know this, the four Kumaras started this Nimbarka Sampradaya, right, Prabhu? Krishna Kirtan
Yeah.
Prabhu?
Yeah.
And I was reading somewhere that only in the in the Vaishnava Sampradaya, is this mood of love in separation. That is what differentiates us comparing
Not
the
Vaishnava, Gaudiya Vaishnava.
sorry.
Only Gaudiya Vaishnava has that.
Yeah. Hmm. So this is an oh, okay, I misunderstood. So this whole thing is Nimbarka Vaishnava. I thought it was a combination of okay. This is Nimbarka Vaishnava. That's okay. And then Gopalji himself installed this deity of Radharani there. And also it is described here that the deity dresses and the whole deity decorations were not very opulent, and this was because of lack of proper funds available. And then Abhay was enjoying the serene environment atmosphere in Vrindavan, also the cool breeze from the Yamuna river, and he could occasionally see devotees chanting, and he was very pleased to be there, and he really felt at home, being Krishna's servant.
So many temples, those kings and very, very rich people who were actually funding those days. They actually not only funding. I'm sure some of you get acquainted with these temples. I am actually, and I have observed at least in my hometown. The rich people, they build the temple and they give a lot of land and assist so that temple can be maintained. But you see, almost all over the India, the same pitiable condition of the temples is like they've been ruined by force, or the cheaters, they all came and plundered. Now those leaders who are administering those temples, they are not taking care. They are not taking care of the priest, or priests are trying to plunder the temple and land and everything, and the land is under the governments now. I mean, I don't know how many of you really have paid attention to these things, such as personal experience, you know, right?
Yes.
And now also, I think some stories came in Andhra Pradesh. They are trying to sell some property of Venkatesh. Anyway, Venkatesh
Yes,
proceeds.
the TTD temple property. Yeah, because the government, this is all everywhere happening like this. The government, which was elected by a huge majority, and the elected representatives are one of are Christians. So they have their own agenda.
No, I don't think they will win at this time, because
Yeah,
all
no,
this
lot of people have signed the petition. And, yeah.
all this year, no one raised concern. When Hindus were very much didn't know, and they had no devotion, they didn't care. Now at least little awareness is coming. I mean, it's a very horrible situation, and we didn't realize that. And eventually, everybody lost the taste of this temple. If temple is served nicely, if beautiful deities are served nicely, there will be liveliness. It will inspire people's heart to become Vaishnava or whatever it is. But let's see what is Krishna's plan.
That's what Prabhupada said when the Krishna Balram Mandir was constructed, All the devotees, Prabhupada's disciples were, mission accomplished. And Prabhupada said, no, this is just now it starts.
Exactly.
Building is first step, but this is now it starts. Real service starts now.
Mataji wants to read?
Yes, Prabhu. As day turned to twilight.
As day turned to twilight, temple bells rang throughout the town. Abhay walked to the western side of the roof and looked into the city of thousands of temples. The Govindji temple, the Ranganath temple, the thousands of smaller temples were having their Sandhya Arti and Kirtana glorifying Lord Krishna. Abhay responded to the sights and sounds of Vrindavana as only a pure devotee could. His thoughts and emotions were full of appreciation and awareness of Krishna, Krishna's devotees, and Krishna's land. Naturally, he began To think of preaching, hankering for others to know the intimate peace and ecstasy of Vrindavana. Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, was inviting all souls to join him in his eternal abode. Yet, even in India, few understood. And outside India, people knew nothing of Vrindavana or the Yamuna or of what it means to be free of material desires. Why shouldn't people all around the world have this? This was the abode of peace, yet no one knew anything of it, nor were people interested. But this is what they were actually hankering for. Abhay thought of Back to Godhead and how, by Krishna's grace, he might expand his preaching beyond India to the whole world. His God brothers, it would have been better if they had all worked together in the Gaudiya Math, but many of them were at least keeping the regulative principles. None of them, however, seemed to be doing much beyond maintaining a temple here, an ashrama there, worshipping a deity, eating and sleeping. But there was so much more to be done in broadcasting the glories of Vrindavana. Abhay chanted and thought of Krishna. Gradually, he turned to his task of producing the October issue of Back to Godhead, due to be printed shortly in Delhi. He had a deadline to keep. Should I continue, bro?
If you can, yeah. As long as you can summarize, you can read the whole chapter.
No, Prabhuji. So I think I'll end here. That kind of ends that part. So I will end there, Prabhuji.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think the most important thing that I could get from this, what I read, was Prabhupada's interest in preaching, how he was thinking, and it also shows his compassionate heart, because he didn't go to Vrindavan and think, oh my God, this is so good, and he didn't just settle down there. He was thinking again his goal of how can he get this ecstasy of Vrindavana, this intimate piece of Vrindavan to others, not just for people in India and all over the world. So he was thinking how people even in India that many years back, they were not, they knew nothing about Vrindavana or Yamuna River or what it means to be free of material desires. And he was thinking to himself, how it would have been nice if all his God brothers were together and worked together in the Gaudiya Math. But since, he couldn't get all of their cooperation, he was thinking how he can get this message to the world, and then went back to writing the magazine, Back to Godhead magazine October issue.
Yeah, it's that their condition is still now, many of them, the ashrams, Gaudiya Maths, it's very hard to maintain, and they're focused. Like preaching activity is not very prominent.
We
was some,
went to New Zealand, Prabhuji, a couple years back, and we went to a temple near Auckland, I believe, and that they said it was one of the Prabhupada's God brothers established that.
I know Narayan Maharaj, he's saying Narayan Maharaj, I heard it.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
that itself is a big thing with ISKCON, all of you know, right?
Yeah.
So all these things which you're seeing in Mataji, all the Western world you're seeing, the temple, is after Prabhupada.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
after
that's true.
everything happened after Prabhupada, and Prabhupada left, our society could not keep this together. So they started going here and there, how it is. When you try to unite people, it doesn't work very easily. So the people went here and there. The many Prabhupada disciples also went, supported Narayan Maharaj, and Narayan Maharaj established many places. But I don't think he did really many temples.
No, yeah,
But
it didn't look like it. Yes, Prabhuji.
the California, that's Sridhar Swami. We went to Sridhar Maharaj Center in California this last time when we went. There also, we find some of the Prabhupada's disciples who help in establishing that, is the fact. And everybody came as after Prabhupada paved the path.
Right.
They were not, none of them were there before him. So, and another thing is only Prabhupada's Srimad Bhagavatam English translation is only Prabhupada has, no one else has it. That's why, irrespective of what, every center, including Swaminarayan's also, I heard they use our Prabhupada's Srimad Bhagavatam. That's good. Huh?
Yeah.
Yes,
Bhagavatam.
only English translation available.
Yeah, Bhagavad Gita, anyone can translate and give commentary on this. It's okay. That tons of it. But it comes to Bhagavatam, Prabhupada's Bhagavatam is almost everybody has Prabhupada's Bhagavatam. Who is okay? Prasanthi, please.
I thought of back to Godhead and how, by Krishna's grace, he might expand his preaching beyond India to whole world. His God brothers, it would have been better if they had all worked together.
I'm sorry. We already covered that. Yeah.
The next
morning.
The next morning, before sunrise, the residents of Vrindavana were astir, bathing in Yamuna, performing puja to their deities, reciting mantras. But Abhay was awake even before most, writing in stillness beneath the light in his rooftop room. As he wrote diligently in English, scriptural references appeared and took their place within convincing arguments. For hours he wrote, page after page, in an exercise book, until gradually the chirping of awakening birds signaled the end of the dark night's stillness. Soon the sun would rise. Keeping to his regular schedule, he put up aside his writing and began chanting japam, staying in his room, uttering the Hare Krishna mantra in a soft, deep voice. Even before the first traces of light in the sky, before the river was visible, a few Babajis reciting prayers made their way through the streets, heading for the Yamuna. By 4 a.m., gongs and temple bells throughout the city heralded the Mangalarti of the deity. Abhay continued, chanting alone for another hour. Then he prepared to bathe, lowering the bucket on its long rope and howling water up to the rooftop. It was right. It was light when he went out. His bead bag around his neck, a few copies of Back to Godhead in his hand. Turning right at the temple door, he walked the tight, crooked lane past alleys, dirt paths, and cross lanes, which interlaced in a winding network. There were no shops in the area, only silent buildings, many of them hundreds of years old. The neighborhood was serene. Behind closed shutters, someone played on wooden clackers and sang Hare Krishna softly. At a crossroad where dark women filled brass water pots from a well, Abhay turned left onto a street lined with small open porches. On either side, he saw ornate temple architectures, one entrance marked by two stone lions, another by a carved elephant with teeth like a tiger's. A brick and mortar wall was crumbling with age. So, Srila Prabhupada got up very early, earlier than most of the people over there, and he started writing. And he was writing for hours, and finally, during the 4 o'clock time, when the birds were chirping, he started his Hare Krishna Mahamantra. He continued for some time, and then he came out to bathe, and then this was his regular schedule, and after that he went out with his bead bag around his neck and few copies of Back to Godhead in his hand, and it also describes the architecture over there. The houses are hundreds of years old, and the atmosphere looked very serene, and there are no shops, only silent buildings. And he could hear some soft chanting in the background in some houses, playing some instruments like wooden clankers. And he was passing all the lanes one after another. And it also describes how the atmosphere over there, which belonged to hundreds of years old. That's all, Prabhu.
Very, very beautiful. I hope we aspire, we pray that we'll be able to enter into the Vrindavan in some time. Sridhari or Srikar?
Soon Abhay arrived at the Radha Raman temple, established almost 500 years before by Gopala Bhatta Goswami, one of Lord Chaitanya's chief followers. Here, residents of Vrindavan were coming and going according to their vows, following a strict schedule that allowed not a moment's delay, making their daily visit to various temples. Abhay entered and stood amidst a group of worshippers, viewing the deity of Krishna, Radharaman. The deity, wearing a fresh garland of flowers, his enchanting black form adorned with black silks and jewels, appeared very opulent. Knowing the priests of Radharaman to be respected, learned Sanskritists, some of whom also read English, Abhay had brought with him a few copies of Back to Godhead. He met Vishwambhar Goswami, a young priest in his 30s who, after the death of his father, had left his law practice and taken over some of the temple's management. The temple was run under a caste Goswami system, and thus for 500 years, Vishwambar's ancestors had handed down charge of the temple. Although Vishwambara had met many sadhus, he was immediately struck by Abhay's gentle and humble demeanor. He accepted the copies of Back to Godhead and sat and talked with Abhay. Abhay then continued along Vrindavan's winding lanes to visit another temple, Radha Damodar. He passed old Babajis and women carrying water, a commercial shop beside an open porch where people worship Shivalinga. Monkeys sitting atop a high concrete wall and ranging from roof to roof, ledge to ledge, ch- chatted and gestured as Abhay walked beneath. As the morning progressed, barefoot children had begun to appear more frequently, playing within the open doorways. As he walked along chanting japa, his right hand in his bead bag, his lips moving softly, hardly anyone in Vrindavan knew him. But as an elderly, cultured Bengali gentleman, he did not seem an unusual. He did not seem an unusual sight. He was religious Babu in a town devoted entirely to religion. So here we see that Abhay, he arrives at the Radha Raman temple, and then that temple was established about 500 years ago by Gopal Bhatta Goswami. So who is like one of the chief followers of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So at the temple, he saw many residents of Vrindavan come and go. I mean, so many of the Vrindavan residents, they take their bow and then they take darshan of all the prominent temples of Vrindavan every day. So that was the bow that they take. So you have seen many of them. And then he was also standing in that temple and looking at the deities who were very opulently dressed with fresh garlands. And then it's also mentioned here that the priests of Radha Raman temple very respected, and then like also learned in Sanskrit and also knew English, some of them. And then since Prabhupada brought with him some Back to Godhead magazines, so he met a priest there, Vishwambar Goswami, who was in his 30s. And then that priest, he was a law practitioner, but since after his father left his body, and then he took over the temple managing service, because the temple was being managed by the caste Goswami system. So though that young priest met many sadhus in his life, he was like struck with wonder, and then he was like awed when he first met Abhay, and then he was very impressed by Abhay's gentle and humble demeanor. And then he accepted the copies of Back to Godhead magazines from Srila Prabhupada. And then after that, it's mentioned that Srila Prabhupada continued into the streets of Vrindavan to visit another temple, Radha Damodar. And then he would, while he was wandering through the streets of Vrindavan, he would chant japa, and then with bead back in his right hand, his lips moving softly, and then hardly anybody in Vrindavan knew him. He was very religious, but everybody knew that he was a very religious Babu, and then he was in a town which is entirely devoted to religion, Vrindavan. Yeah.
Abhay would regularly visit Vrindavan's important temples and afterwards he would shop, returning to his room around 11 with vegetables for cooking. Using the kerosene burner and a three-tiered cooker, he would cook rice, potatoes, and sometimes sabzi. He would also cook chapatis. He would take only one meal a day at noon and in the evening a cup of milk. When he did not have time to cook, he would take prasadam of the deity. After lunch, he would nap for 15 minutes and then write. He rarely received visitors but stayed alone writing. Just before sunset, he would again go out visiting temples. At Kesi Ghat, he would pass by sadhus sitting alone here and there, facing the Yamuna. The river itself was little trafficked, sometimes a boat or two slowly moving on the river's placidity, sometimes a fish splashed in the water or a bird binged along the river, watchful. Kesi Ghat was quiet and beautiful, especially after the sun had relented for the day. Sadhus would hail Abhay on sight with Vrindavan's common greeting, Jai Radhe, and Abhay would return his Hare Krishna. So, Prabhupada used to visit all the important temples in Vrindavan, and while returning home, he would shop some vegetables for cooking. So, daily he used to take only one meal a day in the noon, and if he didn't have time to cook, then he used to have prasadam of the deity. And after lunch, he would take a nap for 15 minutes and start writing. And he used to rarely have visitors, so he used to sit alone writing. And just before the sunset, he would again go to visit the temples, and he would pass by the Kesi Ghat, and there he used to sit facing the Yamuna River and watch all the things happening near the river. Like sometimes a fish splashed in the water, and sometimes a bird winged along the river. And it was very beautiful and very quiet near the river. So, after sunset, he would, like, their sadhus would greet like Jai Radhe, and Srila Prabhupada used to return his Hare Krishna.
Nice. Because in Vrindavan, everybody say Radhe, 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 Radhe. You know, rickshaw wala. If you say, you don't say ha ha. You know, so they will say Radhe, Radhe. So basically, that's the way people communicate. But here Prabhupada says you say Hare Krishna. Vijayan Prabhu, please.
When in the evening he walked through town, he would find himself amidst the vibration of one kirtana after another. In the temples of Krishna, Rama, Chaitanya, Narasimha, or Shiva, in ashrama halls, in homes, even amongst groups walking on the streets, there would be kirtana. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. He would often see Bengali widows gathered together in a hall. Thousands of them lived in ashramas in Vrindavana, staying together with few ones, wearing dull white saris, keeping their hair cut short, never leaving Vrindavana even for Mathura, wanting only to stay in Vrindavana, to die in Vrindavana chanting Hare Krishna. A man would sit playing mridanga and leading a chant, while a group of widows clapped their hands unevenly, responding in their childlike voices. The drum, the clappings, the singers, unpolished but earnest, made a sweet sound in the evening. As Abe walked, no sooner would the sound of one kirtana fade than another would rise loudly before him, and then fade behind him as another rose to meet him. A temple bell ringing formidably, intermingling with the drums, cymbals, and chorus of another group, or a single person passing nearby singing his own Radhe Radhe. Even the greetings were Kirtana, Jai Radha, Haribol, as faces passed, as carts clattered by, as men joked or made their last transaction of the day in the market. And as stray cows made their way home, their bells clanged around their necks. Somehow everything was in connection with Krishna. And as Abhay returned to the secluded Vamsi Gopalaji temple, there also he would hear kirtanas, only more private, perhaps only husband and wife in their room. The man playing mridanga and singing one line of bhajana, his wife singing in response. Vrindavana was not ordinary. Every singer sounded sweet, in his own way an expert melodist. And everyone sang of Krishna. Krishna was present in every occasion and event. So this explains the experience what Prabhupada faced during the evenings in the Vrindavan. He used to go for a walk. As he walking through the town in the evening, he used to hear various kirtanas happening in that place. So it was since there are several kirtanas happening in several places, while the path he is walking, he hears a kirtana from one group or one place, and as he slowly walks down, that sound becomes low, and he reaches another place and he hears that noise, and so it keeps on going. And also he also saw that a group of widows are also participating in the kirtanas, and they also support the people who are playing the mridanga and all by clapping their hands, and they don't even move to Mathura or any other place. They just simply chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, and they want to finish or end their life in Vrindavan only. And also even the the transactions are in the market, everything everywhere, it was resembling, and it people are saying greeting them with the Haribol and Jayarade, and everywhere he can see that he can associate him with Krishna. And also at the end he was reaching the secluded temple, and here also he hears the kirtana, but there were only two people, but still the same kirtana and bhajana were happening.
That's the beauty of Vrindavan. I want to say that everybody, Krishna at the center, and all these ladies, they, as was mentioned, widows, they came, and everybody is staying and whole day chanting and begging something and doing some service. That's not the past. And every temple you go, if the two devotees or four, they always sit and play with one kartal. They will take one kartal, they sing different tunes. So Prabhupada is experiencing this unique thing of this place of Vrindavan, where Krishna at the center. Swati Mataji.
Srila Prabhupada, the glories of Krishna nobody can understand. Similarly, Vrindavan, the land which is known as Vrindavan, also has unlimited potency. When you go to Vrindavan, you will find unlimited potency of spiritual atmosphere still. If you go to Vrindavan, you will see so many saints and sages. Still, there are worshipping Vrindavan Dham. As Lord Krishna is worshipful, simply his place, Vrindavan is as good as Krishna. It also worshipable. Commuting became difficult. He would take the morning train into Delhi and, having nowhere to stay, return to Vrindavan the same night. That didn't give him much time in Delhi, and it was expensive. At first, he had stayed with Mr. Gupta, a pious gentleman who studied the Gita regularly and afforded sadhus a place to stay. Abhay had explained Mr. Gupta about his back to Godhead and his desire to preach in West. It has been a great arrangements, and Abhay had kept to himself writing, but in time another sadhu took the room. Even with his minimal personal expenses, it was difficult to raise enough in donations to cover the traveling, printing, and mailing. Giving couple of back to Godhead away wasn't difficult, and he was doing that in Vrindavan. But working alone, writing, editing, selling, soliciting donations was too much. The printer, Mr. Jain, was amazed, wondering why a person would put himself through such difficulties. Printing a newspaper he couldn't afford. Do you want me to continue, Prabhuji?
Yeah.
Srila Prabhupada, I worked for Back to Godhead day and night. In beginning, when I was householder, I did not care if somebody paid or not paid. I used to distribute literally. But when I left my household life and I was living alone, sometime in Vrindavan and sometime in Delhi, or sometime traveling for pushing on BTG, they were very hard days.
Hmm. So here it is, Prabhupada is explaining his situation. Looks like he would come because that's his service. He cannot stay. Vrindavan is comfortable place, but his purpose, his service is in Delhi. Commuting, paying, bearing that cost, printing was not very easy. But somehow here, Mr. Gupta, somehow Guptas are a little favorable, I see. He used to offer his room where he stay, right? Yeah. So I think it's same Gupta also we will hear in later when Prabhupada returns from US. First time he same Gupta probably will help in building the Delhi temple later. So anyway, so here it is very hard for him. Even then somebody else, it seems, took that room, right? He says giving copies is not difficult, but he had to do all this writing, editing, selling, soliciting donations. It was too much. Mr. Jain was surprised why this person is working hard. He can understand his heart, how he's determined to do it. So he said that I worked for Back to God day and night, when I was a householder, but now I gave free, even if he didn't care much in those days. But now these are the very hard days he's sharing his experiences. AJ, please.
After his 12th consecutive fortnightly edition, the issue for November 20th, 1956, Abai ran out of money. Mr. Jain had to throw up his hands, saying he couldn't print simply out of friendship. Abai returned to Vrindavan, where he spent his time writing, but with no plan for publication. It was because people weren't interested in becoming Krishna conscious, because they had no time. That Back to Godhead had failed financially. Certainly, sadhus in India were celebrated and influential, but Abai was not amongst them. Of course, the uncompromising preaching he had learned from his spiritual master, the chopping technique in which he openly criticized revered politicians and holy men, was not likely to win him favor and patronage. Don't flatter, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati had said. Speak the truth, and if Krishna is pleased, then you will come out successful. Money will come, and Abai had firm faith in this. This was his outstanding asset, his faith in his spiritual master. He was sure that by following Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, he would receive his blessing and the blessings of Lord Chaitanya. Although for the last 2 years he had followed any path that had opened as far as it had led, he had remained one-pointed, aimed at serving the order of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. He was confident. Sooner or later, he would obtain substantial backing. He would find a sympathetic audience. Sincere workers would join him. So yeah, it's just he went as far as he could, right? He kept publishing, and after his 12th issue, he was finally out of money, and the printer said, "Hey, I can't help you. You're right. I've done what I could, but I have a business to run as well." So he didn't know what to do at that point, so he just kept writing, and due to kind of, I guess, his let's call it direct nature, right? His pull no punches, tell it like it is nature. He wasn't making many friends in terms of influential people and some of the other important holy men and politicians. But he picked up that trait from his master, from Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, saying, "Hey, just he told him that tell him like it is, and as long as you're doing the right thing, Krishna will take you to the right, take you where you need to be." So yeah, he just kept going. That's kind of the gist of it, right? He just kept going, kept his head down and kept working, and having faith that Krishna would show him the right way if he just continued to follow the order that he was given by Bhaktisiddhanta.
Yeah, that's a very beautiful faith on Krishna. Actually, this is a great point. There's so many sadhus, so many rocks that are flourishing in India, like they can become millionaires or billionaires, because of the money they raise. And here he is a genuine sadhu. We all are seeing whole life is struggling, he's having hard time paying him money of 5 rupees. Can you believe? And still there is no compromise on purity. Prabhupada, he didn't want it to compromise that. He's telling the truth. Otherwise, whole purpose will be lost if you flatter for that, actually. You already, that was his outstanding asset. You read that, right?
I did, yes.
Yeah. So he was confident, that's his wealth and strength. A letter came to Abhay in Vrindavan from his disciple, Acharya Prabhakar Mishra, and it gave Abhay an idea. Acharya Prabhakar, who was in Bombay working as secretary for the Sanskrit department at Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan, invited Srila Bhaktivedanta Prabhu to join him there for preaching together, just as in the old days. The founder director of the Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan was Governor K. Munshi, the same governor whose wife had pressured Abhay to give up the Radha Memorial in Jhansi. But Acharya Prabhakar, having recently established a friendship with the governor, intimated to Abhay that the governor might be willing to help. Thus, in January 1957, after assuring Mahanta Gopal that he would return and that he would send 5 rupees a month for his room, Abhay traveled to Bombay. Acharya Prabhakar got Abhay quarters in the faculty residence and introduced him to various scholars and religionists. They then attended a lecture by Governor Munshi, "What is wrong with the world?" Afterwards, Abhay approached the governor expressing his appreciation of the speech, but stressing that it would take a spiritual movement to avert the imminent global disasters. Without God consciousness, even Mr. Munshi's work in the Bharati Vidya Bhavan would be waste of time. Abhay spoke of his interest in reviving the League of Devotees, and he suggested how he might work within the Bharati Vidya Bhavan to infuse the life of God consciousness into the governor's cultural projects. Governor Munshi responded by offering Abhay a post as honorary professor of Bhagavad Gita. Abhay accepted and gave the governor some copies of Bhagavad Gita, requesting that he read them in his spare time. Wonderful. It's amazing how Krishna is taking him. Where he's taking, he has no idea. He's just simply being an instrument of Krishna. Did you all see? He has no idea what's happening next. So Acharya Prabhakar, his disciple, somehow interestingly moved to Bombay. He's become Sanskrit teaching. A secretary of Sanskrit department invited Prabhupada, please join in this wonderful preaching opportunity under the Vidya Bhavan, same Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan, where he was kind of kicked out in one sense by governor's wife, K.M. Munshi's wife. But somehow the arrangement was made, and Acharya Prabhakar introduced in a good relationship with many, and Prabhupada Bhaktivedanta convinced Governor Munshi that to introduce the spirituality in Bharati Vidya Bhavan, the way I see that. Bharati Bhavan, to infuse the life of God consciousness into the governor's cultural projects. So under that way, he gets the position from the Governor Munshi as an honorary professor of Bhagavad Gita. That's interesting. And he gives a copy of copies of Bhagavad Gita for his reference. And read, Gaurav.
As honorary professor of Bhagavad Gita, Abhay began each class with Hare Krishna Kirtan and then lectured on the Gita, presenting Lord Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But he soon found his post confining. Within the Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan, he found little scope for reviving the League of Devotees. Then, along with other members of the Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan, Abhay had attended the 5th annual convention of the World Academy of Sankirtan at Kurukshetra, where 5,000 years before, Lord Krishna had spoken Bhagavad Gita. India's President Dr. Rajendra Prasad, Governor Munshi, and many scholars and pundits from all over India participated in the discourses. But everyone there had his own thing to say, apart from the conclusions of Lord Krishna. So Abhay considered the meeting a waste of a time. Since he was not scheduled to speak, since the non-devotional discussions on the Gita disturbed him, and since he saw that nothing practical would come of such a theoretical meeting, he left Kurukshetra and returned to Vrindavan. Acharya Prabhakar soon joined Abhay. As they talked together in Abhay's room at Vamshi Gopalji temple, Abhay spoke again of his desire to revive the League of Devotees. After having recently seen the watered-down culture programs in Bombay and Kurukshetra, he felt even more keenly the need for a society of pure devotees. There were already so many cultural religious organizations. If he liked, he could join one. But where was that organization with which he could affiliate himself wholeheartedly? Only the League of Devotees espoused the conclusions of Lord Chaitanya and Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, vigorous, worldwide preaching and devotional service to Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, as his post honorary professor of Bhagavad Gita, he would give classes by starting with kirtan and then lecturing. But he realized that even though he was at this post, it would be really hard for him to revive the League of Devotees. And then once he went to a convention of Sanskrit where many great scholars and the president of India was there. But he realized that these people are just not talking based off of what Krishna has said, and he found it as a waste of time, and he returned to Vrindavan. And when Acharya Prabhakar joined Abhay, they started talking, and Abhay told him that he wanted to revive the League of Devotees, and at one point or another, he wanted to start worldwide preaching and give the message to everyone.
When did he return to Vrindavan?
And return to
Yeah,
Vrindavan.
no, it's there, but he had a big meeting with all the Indian president and everybody had joined. Looks like they have their own point. They have their own interest, their own agendas. So that's why he left and returned to India. Did you read the Acharya Prabhakar soon joined away?
Yeah.
Right. I just want to read that again, please. Acharya Prabhakar soon joined away as they talked together in Avay's room at Vamsi Gopalji temple. Avay spoke again of his desire to revive the League of Devotees. After having recently seen the watered-down cultural programs in Bombay and Kurukshetra, he felt even more keenly the need of a society of pure devotees. Basically, he doesn't want to work under any other. We need to have our own identity. There are already so many cultural and religious organizations. If he liked, he could join one. But where was that organization with which he could affiliate himself wholeheartedly? Only the League of Devotees espoused the conclusions of Lord Chaitanya and Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, vigorous worldwide preaching of devotional service to Lord Krishna and the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I think this is very important. Until now, he's been trying in partnership with his God brothers, partnership with so many ways, in partnership with other organizations, and didn't work out. So basically, he found a conclusion, I must have my own organization focus on that basis only. Otherwise, it can be melted, watered down. The philosophy can be compromised. So it's 8:41. I want to thank you everyone for joining. Hope everyone is relishing this talk. Any quick questions, comments?
Yeah, just real quick. So I looked it up, and if I have it right, five rupees is about $1 in 1956, which is
you're right. You're right.
It's pretty crazy.
yeah. 5 rupees was $1.
And I mean, when he's talking about he paid his rent of 5 rupees a month, he was paying $1 a month.
Yeah. And now Indian inflation rate changed so much. Now it's become, to get a room, you have to pay almost 10,000 rupees.
Yeah, it's
just for one room now.
It's about, so 5 rupees is about 6 cents right now, 7 cents USD. So
Yeah, that time. When Prabhupada came to America, his $1 was 7 rupees. So he came with only 40 rupees with his hand. We will read it later as it comes. And it's so inspiring. I request, somehow or other we all should take at least the struggle. Whole life is spent in just for Back to Godhead. Can you believe? He didn't have a bigger agenda, only for preaching. Back to Godhead took so much of efforts, like only he could survive, no one else. So at least, we somehow or other we try at least few hundred subscriptions we should make in Delaware as a appreciation, as a thank you for Prabhupada's efforts. You all think it's $20 per year?
that, can you do that through Krishna Village or?
Yeah. We can do the Krishna Village. You know what? I will subscribe to everybody. And also, I was thinking those anyone else also reach out to friends, they can subscribe. Otherwise, we can just sponsor $20 for them. At least they will get a copy like that. How does it sound? I'm asking others also. Sounds good. We should try for Back to Garden magazine subscription for many people in Delaware. So as
Yes, Prabhu.
yeah, we can get 5 subscriptions. Everybody gets 5 subscriptions. At least we'll get 100. We'll make a big group. And $20 paying will not be difficult for many people. So you can ask, just approach. You can subscribe for $20 for this magazine for us. I think they will be very happily give. Everybody agree? So you can unmute. I'm unmuting all. I just want to see if you are inspired if you can do a drive Back to Garden magazine subscription.
Sure, Prabhuji.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay, that's I'm very grateful. At least I will be pleased in the struggle. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.